Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of P3, where progression is the obsession. This will be more of a year-end review. We have had a lot of guests on the show this past year, 19 guests on over 14 episodes to be exact. We'll do a quick take on what made each episode unique to each of us, and maybe it will get some of the listeners out there to go back and listen or re-listen to an episode from earlier on. But for now, let's go over events, sponsors, and merch. Brian, what's up?
January 23rd, we will be doing a live Q&A at the West Michigan Mountain Biking Alliance annual meeting at City Built Brewing. We will be doing our interviews between 6 and 7 before the main presentation that Dan Freyer will be doing as president, giving the kind of the state of the union and the local trail scene. Also, I'd like to plug our sponsor, Building Blocks Foundation. You can go to their website at buildingblocksfoundationinc.org, and they are providing speech and language to underserved populations in the greater West Michigan area, helping bridge the gap for kids coming up today. Kellen, what do you got going on?
Nothing. I've been on holiday break. Check out the merch store anyways. I'll be updating that soon after the holidays. We got t-shirts, we got jerseys, we got sweatshirts, both men and women's specific clothing. Anything you purchase from there goes right back in the podcast to help make it better. Appreciate anything you guys purchase. Helps us out a lot.
And don't forget that if you send us an individual email, we can put your name on a custom jersey or a custom shirt. We have a few models that we can do that on. So get a hold of us if you want something special and customized for yourself. It's not that much work for us to do, and we love seeing our gear out there, out and about.
Yeah, word is you're working on one that has googly eyes.
Yeah, if you listen to one of our episodes, we talk about how I put googly eyes and everything, so I'm working on a shirt with googly eyes on it.
So a Kella Johnson signature t-shirt or hoodie, be on the lookout for that. Googly eyes are always a hit. Yes, do check out our sponsors. Come check out the show at the WMMBA meeting on January 23rd. But without further ado, here is the podcast.
Well, it's been kind of a wild year, huh?
Sure has.
We've done so many cool episodes this year. Let's talk about them.
Yeah, more episodes or with more guests than I realized.
Yeah.
I haven't done a count until you guys just told me what the number was, but yeah, I'm actually impressed by it.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem like that many, but it's been a lot.
I was surprised here 20 guests over the year. That's quite a few. A lot more than I thought.
Yeah, well, we said 19 in the beginning because one's a repeat. But we like having Craig on. He's a good time. But let's go back to the beginning of the year. And our first episode that we recorded this year was with Brian and Larry of the Local Roots podcast. Kyle named it affectionately Ball Play.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to get creative with some of the names out there. But yeah, I remember that episode mostly about the pickleball talk for whatever reason. We got into like some shoes that I had acquired from work, and we were talking about paddle construction and how ball play is a factor if you're inside or outside. I don't know. I kind of thought it was interesting because pickleball was such a growing sport and I knew nothing about it. But Brian and Larry were very cool dudes. It was really cool to get to know them a little bit more in this kind of a platform. Yeah, the pickleball is kind of my big takeaway from that whole episode.
Yeah, I like really sticking it to the tennis guys. I also remember telling us how they were able to get themselves a billboard and how it was pretty inexpensive, and made me think about what we can get our names on and try to advertise a little more too.
Yeah, it was important for me to have them on because theirs was the first podcast that kind of gave me the idea that we could do this as well. I got to tell that to them, to their face, and that was important for me.
So who's next on our list?
We had Rich Moore, our buddy from down south.
Oh, yeah.
Rich Moore, who is Seth Bike Hack's producer. He is one of the cameramen for the Gravity Co-op who films all the local, well, not local, but national races around the country and make sure you can watch all the race recaps on YouTube. And he also has his own YouTube channel, Semi Cindy.
Yeah, we met Rich back when he was just starting that channel, and it's grown pretty big. He got quite a few views now, and he does a good job on his videos and that, and he's a good guy.
Yeah, I've checked out his channel on YouTube since we've had the podcast. I'm impressed. It's like any other high-end YouTube channel that you'd see out there. And I'm guessing that Seth Bike Hacks, who I haven't looked at yet, or any other channel or I guess company or program he's affiliated with has the same high level of quality. But yeah, Rich was somebody that I met when Kellen and I and another guest that we had on the show, Jesse Stanton, all went down to Snowshoe. I want to say it was 2020, right around COVID, because my daughter was like still an infant / toddler at that point. But yeah, we met Rich on the slopes somewhere, and nice dude. Just kind of, we met him in the parking lot, I think. We ran into him a couple times. But yeah, he showed us one of the secret trails, I guess, that was out there. So we kind of rode a little bit more, just kind of like as a foursome together. But yeah, got to know him a little bit. And then when Brian said we acquired him as a guest, I was like, who is this guy? And then Kellen, I think, had mentioned that we had ridden with him in Snowshoe. And then seeing him again, he remembered me. I was honored, which was kind of cool. But yeah, he was a fun one to get to know a little bit more through the online podcast that we did.
Yeah, he was the first episode we ever did with a guest that wasn't in studio.
That's right.
Yeah, it was a big learning experience for us, and it ended up turning out really well. We were pretty worried about it, the way we couldn't get to connect in the beginning, and there were some audio problems.
Bro, the delay was horrendous, but we got through it. It worked out. I'm happy about that one.
We learned from it.
We did. But yeah, Rich's his channels are really informational, and he puts a good spin on stuff to make them kind of captivating and informational. And yeah, like we keep saying, he's a cool dude. So go check out Semi-Sendy, go check out Seth Bike Hacks.
It was kind of our first time getting a bigger guest, where we really wanted to make sure we were good at what we were doing before we started having more well-known people on, so we're not tripping all over ourselves and sounding dumb. And this is about the time I really feel like we were starting to come into our own and felt okay doing the other guests. And the next guest was Rob Martin, who the episode's title was Man, Myth, Legend. He was someone around the West Michigan area that he wins races all the time. He posts a lot. He's got a bunch of super cool videos that he puts out. I remember telling you guys that he was going to be a guest, and you guys were both like, who?
Yeah, Rob does some review videos on his his YouTube page and that. And I remember a YouTube video that we talked about where he reviewed a bike rack for his motorcycle. So yeah, he can carry his pedal bike on the back of his motorcycle, and I thought that was pretty cool. I was talking about that, learning about that.
I got a kick out of Rob for several reasons. He, small business owner, he's got his hands in a lot of different cookie jars, I think is how I phrased it on the episode. And to juggle all that, given that he edits all of his own YouTube content and his podcast, respect, because he and I kind of were doing the same thing with the production side of things. So to see someone be a legit athlete and do these like professional races while juggling a family, a YouTube channel, a podcast, a small business, it's impressive. It's kind of inspirational to see or to hear that story from him.
Yeah, that one was unique because of how little we knew the guest. It was the first time we really had to do a lot of
research.
Thank you. It was the first.
I stalked his Instagram, his YouTube. I got it all before he sat down.
Yeah, I did that the day of, I think.
Yeah, and he's
got a lot out there.
17 websites to go through.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot out there. Yeah.
The next one was one that was really near and dear to our hearts, and it's been a very popular episode. A lot of people were super excited, and I'm sure this will be a return guest in the future. But it was Andy Fleetstra, the original Brodozer.
Yeah, it was good to reunite with Andy over the phone or through Google Meet. I keep on wanting to say Skype, but it's not Skype. Google Meet, I think, is what we used. Yeah, it was nice to talk to Andy again, kind of face to face. Kind of learn a little bit about what he's doing down in Bentonville, kind of from him, getting a little bit of advice before we took our trip out there, because this was pre-Bentonville Bike Fest. And yeah, it was cool to see him again. It was really cool to see him again in person, which was way better. Being able to kind of reunite through this podcast was special. We got to talk a lot about the golden era of mountain biking, at least for me, at Cannonsburg, and some of the old things that we used to build and the races we used to do. So it was cool. Andy's a nice guy.
Yeah, Andy is the best. I mean, he's always stoked about everything. Always gets everyone excited about it. We talked about how Andy was kind of the glue that held us all together. He was the one that got me and Brian kind of out there building that in the skills area. He made a career out of it. Me and Brian were out there building them all the time, and he decided he loved it so much, he made it as his profession. Now he's a professional trail builder out in Bentonville.
Yeah, go figure. That's awesome.
And on that note, he just had his second daughter.
No way.
Over the holiday. Yep.
He had another kid?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just talked to him a couple days ago. He called to check and see how Courtney was doing with her health. We talked, and yeah, new daughter.
Yeah, congratulations.
So they weren't pregnant when we were down there?
I think they found out around then.
Because that's like, you're real close. That's right on that fringe, man. Wow.
It was
Hey, congrats,
the day
Andy.
It was the day we stayed in the house with him.
Dude, it wouldn't surprise me. That's right there. That's right there.
It was also kind of an episode where we got a lot of feedback from people about how much they like hearing some of the old reminiscent stories, which becomes a theme in some later episodes that we do. I still hear that people love a mix of having the bigger name guest on, but also some of the throwback stories and some of the things that kind of makes these people relatable to everyone. The Andy episode, I feel like, was a big one to start us down that path.
Yeah, I would agree. There's like we mentioned in the podcast and just recently, there's so many memories. I always call it the golden era. That's when I progressed the most, and Andy was like always there. He was always there to kind of share in the moment of all that progression. So yeah, being able to talk to him and kind of go over some of that stuff was really fun. You know, it was one of the more fun podcasts I think that I can remember doing.
Yeah, and then the next one, we kind of stuck with a Bentonville theme because between that interview and the next one, we went to the Bike Fest. You can see that on Kyle's awesome video on YouTube, on his YouTube and our YouTube. If you haven't watched it yet, watch it. If you have watched it and you like it, show your friends. I feel like Bike Fest should be giving us money for that. By us, I mean Kyle. All I did was talk on my phone in the video and do a couple whips. After that, we had Maggie Atto and Steve Spinner from our older sponsor, the Matthew Mark Foundation. Maggie was an instructor for Joe down there in Arkansas, and we got to meet up with Joe while we were down there, and we will be meeting up with Joe in Toronto coming up for my birthday in a little bit when I turn 28.
28, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Plus 16.
Yeah, I like listening to Maggie and how they moved from Wisconsin to Bentonville for biking. Like they created their whole life around biking, and they moved states for biking. Like they created their life around that, and that was their main reason for moving and why, and just building a lifestyle around it.
Yeah, I was most impressed with that. I actually had a lot of fun doing that podcast as well. I had never met Steve or Maggie, but learning that they moved from Wisconsin down to Bentonville was kind of a surprise to me. But then again, after seeing what Bentonville has to offer, because this podcast I think took place after Bentonville, I wasn't surprised. So hearing how they did that, or that they actually just kind of uprooted and moved down there, was kind of refreshing to hear. It's like, yeah, bikes can really move people. It can really get you to do things and go places. They're a lot of fun.
Steve has the best Instagram name, by the way, Levo Stevo. It's stuck in my head ever since he said it.
I'm surprised he didn't stick a like in there. He was the like king. Kyle edited out a whole lot of them.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, there's a lot of likes in that podcast. But, you know, there's a lot of likes in every podcast. And by likes, I mean like. You know,
like I like to say.
Yeah, like.
You don't realize you're doing it till you're sitting there editing and listening to your own voice.
Oh, yeah. And, yeah, I'm a tough critic on some of that stuff because I want the podcast to be captivating and, you know.
We all have our own things we say all the time. We don't realize it
until you hear it back,
yeah.
Now, lately, they have not had a ton of biking content with the weather the way it is, and they've gotten really into shooting guns.
Really?
Yeah.
How come they're not on my Instagram feed anymore?
I don't know. I constantly see you.
That's weird.
Yeah,
I like guns.
We all have
like
shooting. I don't think she knew that we were all into it either. We talked about it a couple weeks ago right after she had bought her handgun.
Oh, cool.
The next episode we did was with a pretty good friend. We did kind of some advertising for him in a way. He wasn't allowed to say much on the podcast because he hadn't had his city council approval meeting at the time. So we had to be very careful with how we were phrasing his new campground. That wasn't a campground at the time. It was just a Airbnb with a big yard that you could put stuff in. But now he's got full approval. his merch is all over down here. In fact, I have a shirt on. Kyle has a koozie, and I'm looking at stickers on our microphone rack right now. But it is Mark Deering. If you build it, they will come. And according to Spotify, it's the most listened to all the way through episode we have until one that kind of just came out recently.
Yeah, Mark is an awesome guy. I mean, just great guy to be around. Just the stuff he's doing is impressive. Building his own campground. He's just wants to be a part of everything. He has a social aspect going. Like, he knows how to do that. He runs his own biking team. He's always setting certain events. I mean, he's
real estate mogul.
Yeah, he got it down, and he's just an impressive guy. Impressed with his campground and everything he's doing and everything he does. He's a real great guy.
Yeah, Mark. I hadn't had a whole lot of time to really get to know Mark, and the podcast definitely helped with that. But Mark's one of those guys. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always happy. He's always kind of a good energy to be around. But after getting to know him a little bit, he's one of those guys that you consider an asset to the mountain bike community wherever you are. He's got his campground. He's got his race team. So he's looking to expand the mountain bike community in ways that maybe others aren't able to, aside from just like posting on social media or whatever. So Mark's definitely a keeper in the mountain bike community here in West Michigan. It was really nice to get to know him.
Yeah, I get to talk to him and hang out with him on a pretty regular basis, and just some of the ideas he has. Like, sometimes he gets in over his skis, but they're all good ideas. Like, he just bought a shuttle van and painted it all up. So now when you go to his base camp, you can pay to take the shuttle, and it'll drop you off or pick you up so you can do different sections.
It's not a van, it's an actual bus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bus.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, it's a mini school bus, and they painted it all up. Looks really cool now.
You write like Mark's short bus on the side of it.
He should have.
He should.
After that, we kind of got into some more friends and stories and giving people a hard time. I actually listened to this episode yesterday while I was coming back from Ray's. I kind of feel sad I did not give Craig enough crap in this episode about Taylor Swift. I set him up with some Taylor Swift questions, and I did a good job of it, but he wiggled out of it just as well. But this episode was with Loose Spokes, Pat Ellis, and Craig Frazee. And we titled it Making Bikes Fun because that's what they do. They make bikes fun.
Yeah, we invited Craig over, me and Brian knowing we're specifically setting him up to make fun about Taylor Swift. But he got his way out of it pretty good. Craig's always a fun guy. But Pat Ellis, he is an amazing biker, especially on a BMX. Like, his skills he has, I can't convey how good and technical of a rider is. Just his tricks are impressive. You need to check out his Instagram. And just his transition from BMX to being on the WMMBA board and building trails and being a part of that. It's cool. It's cool seeing a guy make that transition.
Showing you up at manuals.
Yep. You got to listen to the episode, but he played me good. He asked me, like, how do I manual?
Don't tell the story.
How.
Yeah,
Save
go back
it.
and listen to it.
Yeah, he played me good.
He was he's just kind of quiet that whole time. He's a real good bike rider. He's on the board too. I didn't know that.
He was.
Oh, he was on the board.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, Pat's another one of those guys I hadn't really got a chance to sit down and chat with on more of an intimate setting, I suppose. He's a wizard on a BMX bike and a mountain bike. He's also one of those guys that wants to see expansion, especially with the progressive trails in West Michigan. And he's had a big hand in developing the Richmond Trail, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the Merrill Trail along some of their more like jumpy, flowy sections. So having a guy like that out there looking to build upon what we have to kind of make it more exciting is super helpful. And he can showcase it by manualing all over it and around it and up trees, and just check out his Instagram. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was one of the people that after Larry left the Local Roots podcast, he kind of took over the spot. It was him and then someone from our next episode, Bob Hammond. And Bob was on with our buddy Zach Belwinski, who we dusted off because he hadn't been on bikes in a long time. But it was so good to catch up with Zach and to give him whiskey.
Yeah.
It was a really good time. We had to get our smart shower story out there. It needed to be shared to the world, and it made the title Smart Shower and Bike Trips.
The thing about that, I wasn't there to witness the smart shower incident, but I've heard the story through several people, and every time it's so funny to me. In particular, like Hey Bear, Michael Hebert's reaction was was just, I mean, if you leave it up to the imagination, it's really funny. But no, I hadn't talked to Zach in a while. Getting to see him in the studio and hanging out for a little bit was a lot of fun. With Bob, too, was cool. Bob's another one of those guys that I have a lot of respect for. He's got his own mobile bike shop. He juggles that with raising 2 kids and, you know, the whole family thing. So hearing his story on how he kind of stayed in the bike industry however way he could is really inspirational. And he's an awesome mechanic and also a very good rider, too. So I don't think he updates his Instagram accounts a lot with like his own writing. It's a lot of like information on the things that he's working on or tips and tricks and stuff. So go follow
Common Bond.
Common Bond. Okay, yeah, Common Bond Bike Shop.
He also didn't share our episode. He said he did. He didn't.
Well, like I said, man, he's got 2 kids, a family. He's a busy guy. He's a busy guy.
I just needed to call him out.
in his words, it's a labor of love, and I don't doubt it, but respect.
Yeah, Zach's a great guy. One of those people you love having on trips. He always brings the stoke. Always so much fun off the bike. The hanging out at night and that he's always the party guy. Get you going, make you rally. Just his life is interesting with building fancy guitars and riding bikes, and he'll talk you into buying or making purchases you probably shouldn't. He will talk you into it, and he will have the best reasons no matter what it is.
Yeah, there's no buyer remorse if Zach's in the conversation with you, which is huge. It's huge.
And then Zach, or not Zach, but Bob's a great guy too. Owns his own bike shop, running it out of a old bread truck. You know, driving it to people's houses and fixing bikes, and just his experience in the bike industry and that he's a cool guy to talk to and be around. Another great guy.
And a low-key guest on that show also was his dog Sprocket, who repeatedly would start whining for no reason. So you can hear the cute little Muppet in the background with his little mohawk whining in the background.
I think I still have like no hair on my leg because Sprocket wore one of those like vests that had a bunch of patches on it. I don't know what you call them, but
the service animal vest.
Yeah, he had and it had like Velcro straps with like things hanging out, and he couldn't sit still. He was constantly moving around. So he brushed against my right calf probably 22 times to where like I still don't have hair on that one spot.
He was the first dog of a couple that we had in studio besides Stan, obviously. He's always here.
Yeah, keep my feet warm.
Not today. He ran away yesterday. He was a bad boy, and he knows about it.
So that's why my feet are cold right now.
Yeah. And keeping with the theme of like original trail riders and bike trips, we had the opportunity. We found out our buddy Jesse was in town because he doesn't tell us till the day before. He's in town for like 4 days, and we scrambled to make this episode because he had wanted to come on and he wanted to do it online, but with him we had to do it in person. Yeah. And I feel like it was super important. But yeah, the next guest was Jesse Stanton, and the episode was The Amateur Human.
Yeah, what can we say about Jesse? You know, no one likes him. He's the worst. Next guest?
No.
No, Jesse. Me and Jesse used to go on all the trips together. Me and Jesse were inseparable for a while, and yeah, Jesse's a fun guy to be with, and we just give it to each other every time we're with each other.
And congratulations, he's engaged now.
He is engaged now, which I heard about that the other day when he was in town for the holidays. His fiance really gave it to me because I said in the podcast she couldn't do no-handers, and she was upset about that, which you still can't do no-handers, so I wasn't lying.
It's scary.
But yeah, Jesse's a great guy. I loved listening to our stories about him getting angry and hurt, you know, because he's the worst. No. But yeah, when he gets mad, he throws stuff, and that's always hilarious.
Who doesn't?
Right. Yeah, Jesse's another one of those guys, kind of like Andy, where a lot of the progression that at least I experienced was with him in the picture. So there's a lot of memories. There's so many videos that I have archived on my desktop at home that have him in it. And, you know, every once in a great while, I'll go through it and, you know, remember a part of a trip that we took together. It's like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, that was where I learned how to do this, or, you know, I really kind of connected with manuals on that trip or whatever. But took a lot of bike trips with Jesse, Copper Harbor, there's Snowshoe. We went to Windrock a couple of years ago, right when he moved to Tennessee, and we were able to see him there.
Your Mackinac Bridge story.
Mackinac Bridge story. Mountain Creek. Yeah, there's
You want to
Jesse
hear?
was always there.
You want to hear Kyle laugh real hard? Listen to the podcast, and when we talk about how he rode off the bridge on the water trail.
Dude, yes. Yeah, dude, I don't even know if I mentioned it in that episode, but I will forever love Jesse Stanton because he gave me that memory. And every time I think about it, it almost brings me to tears. It's so funny. So
The spider.
the spider. I didn't see the spider, but the spider was kind of a funny story. It's like, yeah, see, you should have stayed with us. Go listen to the episode. Jesse's a great dude. He's always fun to ride with.
False, he's the worst.
Check out his social media and his team he's trying to create. He's trying to doing something similar to what we're doing up here down in Knoxville with the amateur human racing team, and just trying to bring that stoke and appreciation to biking and expanding the sport down to that area. Next, we kind of got a little bit more serious, and we had Justin Simpson. We titled the episode Building Forward because he just kind of moved here, and then within a year, he was on the board, building trails, doing cool stuff. I had ridden with him a bunch of times and always had a good time with him, but having him in studio and like really getting to know his personality, I thought that was super cool. It was really fun to get to know him a little bit more and hear some of his stories.
Yeah, he just moved here and dived in head first, went right on the board.
Dove?
He did things. And went, just jumped right in, went right to the board and in the building trails. I mean, he's done a lot at Richmond. That's kind of his pet project. Great guy. He's joined us before on our Zwift rides. Had fun talking to him on that.
Yeah, Justin, I had never met him before. I hadn't even heard of him until I learned he was going to be on the podcast. Again, it was like the day of the podcast. I think I started trying to find information on this guy, but learning about him in the podcast, yeah, he just moved here recently. He's into mountain biking. He's into other things too. I think he's an engineer of some sorts, right? So he builds bike frames.
Yeah, we talked about 3D printing.
3D printing, yeah.
Paintball,
yeah, that was in there too. But he did some work, or kind of was the front man of some expansion at the Wallfield Trail on the flow trails, one of the flow trails, to where now there's a 3-pack out there, and I've ridden it twice. It's really fun. Again, Justin, that's the stuff we're looking for, man. Keep it up. I love it. Yeah, getting to know him was cool. It's impressive to hear how he just jumped right on the board, kind of started pushing some of this progressive movement in West Michigan. So more of that. We need people like that out there. At least the ones who are able to give the time to the community is huge. So yeah, it was Justin was a treat to have on the podcast.
The next episode we did is our most popular episode to date now. It was the first time we really had to deal with interviewing people that had been on a ton of other podcasts and try to get different stories to get to people, to the listeners. I've known these two for a long time. They were, Kellen and Kyle knew them, but didn't know them well. They knew of them from places. And I listened to this episode yesterday in the car with another person, and it was really good. Matt and Jenny Acker. And this one I kind of met a lot because I was so impressed with how Jenny reacted after we did the podcast. I loved all the stories in it. The last story's a banger. The Mexico trip, that was exactly what I was looking for. It couldn't have come out any better, in my opinion, in the time that we had with them. But then after that, the promo stuff that Jenny did after with like the googly eyes on Instagram, and like she had a picture of every story that they told, that was above and beyond, and that meant a lot to me. So
yeah,
what did you guys? That was a big one for me.
Yeah, Jenny was, and she's got a really cool social media presence. Her thumbnail or whatever is a butt. It's a butt crack. So it really stands out. But she's always posting stories on rides that she's doing. And since we got a chance to meet her and Matt, I'm interested to see like, oh, who else is there? What are they doing? How long is this ride? Is it another 400 miles or whatever? But no, I mean, it sounds so stupid, but it's not stupid. Sorry. It sounds so like childish, I guess, because the most interesting thing that I found out about Jenny is her love of Simpsons, the show Simpsons, and how she does Strava art of all the different characters. And, I don't know how one does that. It's really kind of cool. And I know she's got, is it a separate Instagram account or a separate?
It's a website. It's buttcrackjenny.com.
Okay.
And your reaction to I'd been sitting on that the whole time. That reaction that you had in the moment of that episode it's probably my favorite thing we've ever done on the podcast.
Just
just the natural elation that you had.
watching your mind get blown. Like, wait, what? You do what?
Yeah,
You thought it was cool, and then you saw the picture, and like it's like a whole nother level of like mind blown that you can hear your mind leaking out on the podcast.
Well, it's like and she might, if she's listening to this, it's my spirit fox from when Homer drinks the hot chili. There's another one out there that knows the show almost as much as I do. Like she did even to the three-eyed fish, where, if you're a Simpsons fan, you'll know that one. But, and not to take anything away from Matt, Matt's like a whole nother guy. I'm so fascinated with how these ultra endurance athletes like exist, like who's going to ride 500 miles on their bike and then have it be planned to where they're going to go like there and back. So like 1,000 miles or something like that. I don't know how you sit on a seat for that long. I don't know how you get your mind to get yourself to go through things like that. Even when times are tough, you're sleeping on the side of the road, you build a fire just to keep yourself warm because you have no place to stay because you didn't plan on staying anywhere. You plan on doing everything all the way through in one take. That's crazy. But yeah, there's people out there that do this stuff. Matt and Jenny are two of them. It's interesting. It's fascinating to me to hear their story on things like that. It's cool. Matt's a freak. He's a freak in a good way, obviously.
Yeah, Matt and Jenny was a fun episode. Just hearing about all the costumes even Jenny makes and rides in, and that was crazy. She has a real good eye for like graphic design and just having fun, and just both of them are awesome like endurance athletes. And Jenny's is just as good as Matt is on riding a bike. Like just their ultra distance they do. Matt's just a superhuman in some of the stuff he does. He's been riding his bike longer than I've ever been awake for at one time. I can't imagine being on a bike that long. And Jenny, same thing. Jenny's putting in those ultra long miles too, having fun, and they're real cool power couple, I guess. But yeah, they're real fun episode. Have a listen to how they do all this stuff and how they manage races they put on. And they have it all going.
That's right. I forgot they're into the Barry Roubaix. They're at the forefront of that, right?
Put on one of the largest gravel races in the country.
Yeah. So they're into bikes. Bikes are their life, and to hear someone make a living doing that kind of stuff is really cool. Yeah, and it's a cool dynamic too, because you got Jenny who's like wearing costumes and doing the Strava art and kind of being the character in the group, and then Matt's like the hardcore athlete, so to speak. I mean, they both do ridiculous rides. They're doing way more than I ever would for sure. But it's a power couple. I think you just said that. It's a cool dynamic. It was fun to have them on the show.
It was just a lot of fun. And one thing I don't think I told you guys is by 9 a.m. the next day, the dudes from Sault Ste. Marie had already messaged saying that if we go up there, they'll show us around, they'll show us the downhill trails, the jump trails and stuff, because we talked about it on the episode. But I just couldn't believe it was. I got done with my first job at work and I checked my phone and I already had a message from Sault Ste. Marie.
That's awesome.
So it kind of shows the reach of the show a little bit there. That was kind of a cool moment that I got to experience too.
Nice.
The next one, it was kind of a hectic day that day. We had a guest scheduled, and then they had to bail. We had another guest scheduled. They had to bail. And Allison had been riding with us all season and like really getting to know us and stuff. And we asked her to come on the podcast. It was going to be awesome. And then Michael Foster texted me 10 minutes before we were going to record saying that he needed to bring Allison a downhill bike for her trip down to Windrock in Jared's place. So we crammed him in here real quick, and it was a pretty impromptu episode, but I thought it turned out really good. I had a lot of fun talking to them. They're both young and upcoming, and Michael's been with us forever. He'll be on again in the future with his dad, who was out of town at the time.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. And talking to Allison, we learned that she was definitely the smartest one in the room at the time. And, just her determination to learn tricks and just putting in the repetitive over and over and over until she gets it right, figures it out.
Unlike Chantel, she can take her hands off the bars.
Yeah, we really give it to Chantel in that episode too. And I heard all about it the other day. But yeah, Allison's an impressive human. She was going to be a clarinet performance artist, and how her life changed around from that. It's a fun episode to listen to, and Mike's a good guy. We've known him forever. We talk about the proper way to sell your bike in that episode.
It worked.
Think long term.
Yep.
Yeah, Michael was Michael was inevitable. We had been riding with him since he could tie his shoes for the first time, it feels like. And
Literally.
he's progressed so much more than I have over like the 10 years of, I don't know if I've known him for 10 years. Was it 20? I guess we'll say like 2016, I think, is when I was like first introduced to him.
You've known him since he was 10. Just put that perspective.
Okay, so maybe 2017 then. Anyway, yeah, he's progressed so fast. I mean, I don't know, progressed as fast as tall as he's grown since the first time I met him. He's a stud for sure. And getting him on the podcast, like I said, was inevitable. It was only a matter of time before we brought him on the show. Go check out his Instagram. His work, we'll say, kind of speaks for itself. But I would say getting to know Allison for the first time on the podcast was fun. Yeah, she seems like a brainiac for sure. She's jumping around majors and making changes based on the situation. But I kind of took from that episode, oh, she's one of us. Like hearing her stories about how to nail no-handers and just doing things on repeat, and people are looking at her thinking she's crazy for doing things 120 times or whatever she said. She did this one line at Stony Creek or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, I can relate to that, because how many times did we go up and down at Cannonsburg just trying to get, for me, whips, a right whip, at least to a 30-degree angle or something like that, So it was kind of cool to hear like, oh, and this is a female doing this. She's like, oh, she's one of us. Cool. We can relate to that.
Yeah. That's like the changing of the guard and the next generation, like passing it on to people we can trust and like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like we also mentioned in the episode, we don't see a lot of the female riders doing that kind of stuff here, for multiple reasons, which we covered in the episode. But to kind of see that here locally, it's like, oh, that's refreshing, because you go to like Bentonville or Whistler, they're everywhere. There's like, it's like 50, or what I say, 40, 60 or 45, 55, the ratio for men to women riders in other places. But yeah, she's one to follow. She's up and comer for sure.
On a side note, at Ray's yesterday, there was definitely a noticeable bigger female presence and like groups doing cool things there. It was really good to see. I can't wait to tell Courtney about it when she gets back from Delaware, because I mean that's one thing she was always like the only girl on the bike trip for a long time. Stephanie, your wife, started coming on trips, and we had 2 girls on a bike trip.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. It's twice as many.
Yeah. It's fun to get a mixture of people out there.
Yeah, so I mean, just seeing so many yesterday at Ray's was pretty cool. They were doing trains of like 8, and they were all clearing every jump and doing tricks and stuff. And it's the first time I've seen that, and I've been going to Ray's. This is over 20 years. Like, this is their 20-year anniversary, and I was one of the people that tested it before it was open to the public. So it's been over 20 years for me riding at Ray's. And
20 years.
It was the busiest I've ever seen it. The next episode was wild, because once again, we had a guest. Our good friend Lauren was going to come on and tell his story, which he will be coming on in the future. He might be here later trying out my Zwift. His son had to go to the hospital, the ER, like 3 hours before we were set to record with him. I quick got my little Rolodex out, and for you younger people, that means a thing with cards in it with people's phone numbers on it. And I went through my list of guests that I had put a star on that are local and close and interesting, and people I wanted to have on as like a tier system. And I quick sent a text to my friend at the Rockford Bike Shop, Craig Geetson, and he came in and he killed it. Everyone did our research, got it all done within a matter of 3 hours, and put out what I think is a very entertaining show.
Yeah, Craig was an interesting guy, to say the least. I hadn't heard of him prior to the episode, but getting to know him again through the podcast and I'll just say this, from this podcast, this is one of the biggest takeaways I'll have, is just getting to know someone on a more personal, deeper level. There's so much more to these people than you see like on Instagram or whatever. So hopefully that's what this podcast can do for the listeners out there, is just kind of unfold someone's story. It's way more interesting the deeper you get. Hearing about Craig's affiliation with Burton Snowboards, his history in music was really interesting. He's just a cool dude. He's an older guy, just still kicking it. You wouldn't know that he's 60? He said he just turned 60?
Yeah, turned 60.
You wouldn't guess it. He's like I kind of relate him to the the most interesting man in the world, whatever that beer.
Rob Martin?
Dos Equis.
Dos Equis.
No, Dos Equis. Yeah, Rob too, I guess, but Rob's not Craig's age. Yeah, the Dos Equis guy, I guess is what I was thinking. He kind of reminds me of him in a way.
Yeah, Craig is a cool guy. I'm just hearing his stories about just showing up at Mr. Burton's house, the party, and then being offered a professional contract.
Yeah.
To making his own power bars.
It's Jake.
Jake, that's
Mr. Jake Burton.
Jake Burton.
Yeah, just making his own power bars. To now he's a bike mechanic, and from the early days of building his own bikes, the race. He's real interesting podcast. Cool guy.
The last one that we did was kind of a long time in the making, and I'm so glad that we did the Matt and Jenny episode before we did the Jill Martindale episode, because it allowed us to tie the two together a little bit. With the intro story from the Jill Martindale episode is the tie-in to the end story of the Matt and Jenny episode. So if you could, I don't know how many of the listeners picked that up, but that's exactly the transition between the two. Like that, when I edited that, I made sure I put it right up front. And knowing that they're such good friends, there was going to be a lot of crossover on the stories between the two. It was just really interesting because, once again, we have Jill Martindale, who's a pretty big name in the local, if not national. I mean, she won the Iditarod in 2020. She's done some amazing things on a bike, but to try to be able to pull some stories that she hasn't told out before, we were able to get her flustered a couple times, and I feel like that was a highlight of that interview for me, was being able to kind of catch her off guard with a couple slaps there.
Yeah, the Jill interview was fun, and from hearing her about taking dirt naps, winning the Iditarod, to learning about roller derby, her trying to explain the rules to us and how that goes. It was a real fun interview. Had a good time with Jill.
Only had to edit like 5 minutes of her trying to explain that to us out. It was fun though.
Yeah.
Oh, explaining how roller derby works.
Yeah, and the size and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Jill was a cool person to meet. I had heard of her, ran into her maybe a couple times at some local events that one of our other potential guests puts on. But yeah, hearing her story, again, like hearing a deeper version of what you might see on Instagram or Facebook is so much more fascinating to me. Like, how does one make it 22 days from, southern Alaska to Nome, Alaska? Or how does that work? Like, what are you doing? So hearing it come from her was interesting. The Arrowhead 135, how she described it being so cold, and yet it was 21 days shorter than her Alaskan ride. It still somehow felt longer to her. So, knowing what goes through someone's mind when they're doing these ultra endurance races is probably the most interesting part to me. But yeah, you're not going to see me doing that. No way. But to hear them talk about it is pretty cool. And again, respect. She was cool. Plus, yeah, the whole roller derby thing was kind of interesting to learn about. It kind of reminded me of the whole pickleball episode we did with Brian and Larry. So yeah, Jill's a fascinating individual. Plus, she works for a wheel company that's headquartered right here in Grand Rapids, which is also kind of cool. So she's also one of those people that lives the bike life, from dusk till dawn.
Hearing her struggle a little bit with the mind games too was pretty interesting to listen to. When she was second guessing at the Margie Out and Back 200-mile race, when she was talking about not planning right for the Crusher EX 370-mile race that she did, and like forgetting her front wheel adapter and not having a way to charge her lights and all that. Like, hearing some of the adversity stories were as interesting, if not more interesting to me, than the success stories of winning these races and doing things.
Or even the questionable choices, like cutting out part of the race to go hit Taco Bell and then join the race again just because she's hungry. Stuff like that is funny.
Yeah, that's a good one to go back on. There's a lot of little bits of information in there, like borrow someone's wheel or something like that, right? That's why
it was the hubcaps, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's one of those things where, like, what would you do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? She found a way. There is no not doing it with some of these ultra endurance athletes.
Yeah, she persevered.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can have her and her husband Dan come back in, go to some like 2002 stories about the stupidity of what we were doing on bikes back then. But that's all the episodes we've done this year. That was 14 episodes right there, start to finish, and we got through it faster than I thought we would. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I can say that my Facebook friends group grew by 14 people. Well, less the ones that I was already friends with.
You
right?
mean it wasn't 20 people, all our guests? Some of them didn't friend you?
That's not a great ratio there,
Whatever,
Kyle.
20 or 14, whatever.
You want to call it the ones that didn't friend you?
There were none. My math is bad.
But I do, from the bottom of my heart, want to take a moment and thank everyone that's listened over the last 2 years and the guests that have come on and given us their time. And I hope we've done a really good job of talking to the guest and asking questions that you guys had wanted to hear. It's just been a super fun project.
Yeah, it has. It's been a much busier year, but the podcast, in my opinion, has gotten a lot more fun. Fun and interesting. I think having guests on is the way to go. It really can kind of guide a podcast in a more entertaining way.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, having some of the guests on, hearing about their biking stuff and that, but also finding the non-biking stuff and hearing this fun stories and the little side stories or projects they're into is, just being able to connect as people, not just as cyclists, is always fun. I hope you guys can feel the same. You're connecting with them as not just bikes, but as people, and some of the other fun stories too.
And now we have some breaking news 45 minutes into this episode.
Live breaking news.
This just in.
This is going to be Kyle's last episode with the show. And just life happens.
Yeah.
And we won't be able to replace him. We'll be able to add a person and still hopefully deliver the show in a way that you guys want to hear. It's been awesome to see your growth from the first episode of doing the intro
Those first episode
35
jitters.
times.
Oh gosh, yeah.
To what we can do now and the way we can do it, and just being able to speak better and the things we've picked up from it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's been beneficial, recording yourself and then hearing yourself talk and fixing things that you don't like on how you talk, or learning how to carry yourself through an episode that requires less editing down the road. But yeah, this is going to be my last episode. I don't want to say for good. Maybe I can come back on as a guest or still be affiliated with the show in some way, whether it's Instagram content or some other way. But yeah, life happens. Having 2 kids is a handful, and working full time, so it's not a lot of time to spend editing. I will say that since we've gotten to where, over time we've gotten to where we are now, the podcast has required much less editing. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I just need to take some time to focus on myself and other priorities that are kind of knocking at the door. But yeah, I'd still like to be affiliated in some way, but the time requirements for now, just need to step back.
Yeah, we're definitely going to miss you, Kyle, and all the stuff you brought to the podcast and your skills and helping getting it produced and out. It's definitely going to be missed. We're going to have to figure out what we're going to do going on, but we'll make it work. We'll get it out. We'll figure it out. Might be some calls saying, Kyle, how do we do this?
Well, from our guest list, there's a lot of people that while editing them, they're a great voice. They're excellent guests to have on. Just to name a couple here: Craig, Jeff Balwinski. In no particular order. There's a bunch. They're all good. Brian and Larry, they're great personalities. So, I would hope that more of these people could come back. They made for great podcasts. I'm for sure going to listen. So yeah, I don't think you guys are going to have too much to struggle with. At least I hope not.
I'm old and I hate change, so
Yeah. Don't we
28 it's hard.
Yeah.
No, but it's been really fun, and I'm glad we got to do this little experiment this way and learn from it. And I hope that the Pedal Progressions is more of a brand than it is just a podcast, where we really help grow the sport in different ways. There was an episode with one of the other Pedal Progressions members, Adam Raphael, that never came to air. But he's our dirt work guy, and hopefully Kyle can help us with video stuff, because we brought up multiple episodes that Bentonville video is awesome. The Joyride 150 video is awesome. and all your trick shot videos and all that are great too. I watch all of them.
Those trick shot videos, man. Yeah, that's just being at home with 2 kids, like bored and just being on social media. Oh, this guy's doing tricks. That looks like fun. That looks like something I can do with kids. I'm gonna make a video on it. Yeah, I want to still be involved in some way. You know, I just can't give it every episode like I've been doing. So having you edit the last 4 out of 5 episodes or whatever we've done has been a huge help. It's actually allowed me to put out the Bentonville video and some other stuff like on my personal YouTube and Instagram channel. So it's been really nice to be able to scratch that itch. I'm one of those guys that when he gets an idea of something he can do, it's going to gnaw at me until I can actually do it, or unless something comes up to where it's just not a possibility. But video editing, that kind of stuff, content creation, I'm not like a super popular channel or anything like that, but it's fun. It's a passion of mine. It's a creative outlet, I guess, more or less to say. So yeah, that stuff gnaws at me. So yeah, having Brian help out with the editing of the podcast has been huge to help me get that stuff out. But it's also kind of allowed me to realize, like, yeah, this is just really demanding, and you know, my kids need my attention, my wife needs my attention. So yeah, I'm just gonna take a step back.
Are you saying if Kellen did more, you'd stay? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That's what I brought to the podcast was the editing. So I wanted to contribute. So if that's what it was, that's what it was.
Yeah, we've been making the transition. Brian's been doing a lot of more editing, so it's hopefully limited interruptions, but we've been slowly making this transition anyway. So hopefully, you know, you find what you're looking for, Kyle, and we both wish you the best, and
appreciate it.
Definitely would like to have you on anytime you're willing to come on.
Yeah.
And for the foreseeable future, Kyle's been kind of the glue that holds the conversation straight in the middle. Mm-hmm. He definitely is a much more appealing voice to the ladies than ours. He's got announcer voice. But so for the foreseeable future, the third person is going to be the only guest that has ever actually asked us questions. Mr. Craig Frazee will be filling in for Kyle. For hopefully he'll like it and stay for a long time, but we're going to give it a shot. And we got some really sweet interviews lined up for this year that I think are going to be really fun, really interesting people to have come in here and in the studio. And we will continue to try to pump out some entertaining content for you guys.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm still going to be a listener for sure.
Yeah, hopefully we can put out some more good stuff next year and that. Hopefully you liked what we did this year. We're looking forward to doing more of it. And have any suggestions or any guests you'd like to see, let us know. Send your Taylor Swift questions for Craig. We can get lined up. And yeah, appreciate you guys listening. And yeah, we appreciate you guys, and thanks for everything.
I'll say one more thing before we go. For the individuals that listen to the podcast that I was actually able to meet on location, one being the Geyer Park Pump Track, 2 being Richmond Park, and there's probably been a couple other instances when I'm with these 2 yahoos that have come up. But thanks for listening to my voice. I'm glad I didn't deter you away. I'm just learning now that my voice was the most appealing. I still disagree with it, but
it's a low bar.
I thought I was the my brand was the cringe or whatever you guys had said.
Dad brand.
Yeah, dad
joke brand.
Dad joke brand. Yeah, that's me. All right. But no, thanks. I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks for reaching out when we're on the trail. It's cool to hear that you guys listen to the stuff that we make, and yeah, I look forward to hearing more of it. Keep listening.
Yeah, thanks guys. And like always, remember to keep progressing, keep pushing yourself, and have fun. We'll see you next year.
Bye, Kyle.
See
ya.
Bye.
Bye, Kyle.
Love you guys.